This is a continuation of the solution for this week's Preppin data. So before we went through the weekly targets data stream up to this pivot 4 step, now we're going to be looking into the transactions and how to prepare that data for our year-to-date, month-to-date and week-to-date values. So if we have a look at the data, this time we've got a row for each date and the transactions that occurred. So we've got, the price, quantity and income values there. I'm sure that you can look ahead in the workflow and see that I've probably been lazy again and wanted to transpose that data, to pivot that data so that I have quantity and income in one field. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself there. So first of all, we can get rid of a couple of the columns. We don't need at any point the product ID nor the price, so we just get rid of those straight away at the start. We also want to create this calculation that just says if the year of the transaction date is equal to the year of today because our to date value is the 9th of October 2020, then we're saying that will be classed as this year, otherwise it's last year if we minus off 1 from today's year. So that gives us a nice this year, last year or null category here. So we can exclude the nulls because we're only interested in comparing our sales to last year and to the targets. So we don't need anything that's older than that basically. So that's just a bit of preparation of our data set there to get it into a nice format. We do our pivot on the quantity and income. So this time, rather than doing a wild card pivot, I just dragged the values over because they don't really have any common naming features, just so that then I can have the metric and the values there for us to start making our year-to-date, week-to-date and month-to-date calculations. So I quickly do a little bit of renaming, and then we know that we are going to need, out of the transaction date, we're going to need the week number because that's useful for us when thinking about the 9th of October rather than as a specific set date. We want to think about the 41st week of the year and the 6th day of that week. So we need to create a week number and a day of the week number. So we do that by just duplicating our transaction date field, going into the 3-dot menu here and using the convert dates option to convert it to a week number. And you can see there that it tells us what Tom tells us in the post, that weeks are calculated as Sunday to Saturday. So we do that and we get our week number that we just rename to be week. And from there we create a day. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I decided to rank on the transaction date, grouping by the week and the category, so that we get a 1 to 7 value using a dense rank. That's the way that made most sense for me to do it, but I guess we could have used similar logic from before, where we duplicated that transaction date again and took out the day of the week. Then we could have had like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday going on there. But this is how I decided to do it, and just rename it today. So now we're ready to start our year-to-date, month-to-date and week-to-date calculations. And the logic's a tiny bit different to how we worked on it with the weekly targets. So let's take a look at it. So we're saying that if the year of the transaction date is 2020, we could have, of course, just said if our category is this year, then we just want to take all the values because we know that our data set is only going up to the 9th of October. But otherwise, if it's 2019, then we need to think about where we want to cut it off in our year to date. So we want either the week to be less than or equal to 41, or if it's week 41, then we want the day number to be less than or equal to 6. And that's how we get our values for the year to date. Once again, I want to reassure you that these year-to-date, month-to-date, week-to-date calculations I will pop in the description below so that you don't have to rewrite them yourself. And I also want to reassure you that I didn't just write these calculations perfect first time. I had to do a lot of kind of playing around with them to get them perfect. But maybe that's just me. Maybe this is second nature to you. It's interesting how some things are easier for some people and some things are easier for others. But anyway, I'm just babbling on a bit there. So month to date, we are looking at the month of our transaction date, and we're saying if it's equal to the month of October. And we also want to double check that the week number is less than or equal to 41. We kind of probably don't need that condition because if it's in October, it's, oh no, we do need it because in, oh, let me start that explanation again for you. So because we're dealing with 2019 and 2020 data, so we check if the month is October in our first condition here, and then we're saying, okay, it has to be October, but then it has to be before week 41, or if it's in week 41, it has to be less than or equal to day 6. So yeah, that excludes any of the 2019 October weeks that fall after the 9th of October, and any days after that too. So there we are, nice and simple again. And finally, our week to date is actually the simplest of them all because we just want it to be week 41 and the day number to be less than or equal to 6. Lovely. Now it's all about just reshaping that data, aggregating it up. So we want to group on our metric, our category, and our product name, and do the sums of those week to date, month to date, and year to date values. Then we're doing our pivot again on our TD wildcard pivot to just pivot that down into a different column. And then we are pivoting once more, but this time rows to columns to use the this year and last year, and all of those values that we've just been creating for the year to dates, month to dates, week to dates, we want to be our values in our new columns. And then with a little bit of renaming, then we have this data set much cleaner than before. We've got those 30 rows that we know will be in the output. So now we just want to join on metric, time period, and product name. I want to just highlight something really cool. I think that initially it only joins on the metric, but if you look down here, then you'll see in the join clause recommendations, I can just hit this plus here to get the relevant join clauses up into my applied join clauses section rather than having to do it manually myself. So Prep's always trying to help you out as much as it can. And luckily it was doing the thing that we wanted it to this time. So I'm just going to hide away that. And then finally, we've just got a couple more calculations to write after getting rid of a few of those duplicated fields. Our percentage difference to last year is simply doing this year minus last year over last year and rounding it to 2 decimal places. And the difference to target is very much the same as well. And then it's just a case of dragging around the fields to reorder the columns to look exactly as how Tom has the output. And whew, you can give yourself a pat on the back because that was quite a meaty challenge to get through. So thank you for watching. I hope this was useful and I hope you enjoyed the challenge.